The speed, grace, and power of the Porsche GT3 Cup invades the streets of Trois-Rivieres. We're at Canada's oldest street race as the Canadian Championship heats up.
As we reach the midway point of summer, the Porsche GT3 Canada Series powers on. The streets of Trois-Rivieres is where an army of the nation's best drivers try to fend off the dominance of Scott Hargrove and his Pfaff Castrol Motorsports team. It's the law of man and machine versus the laws of physics as the Porsche GT3 Cup Canada Series tries to tame one of Canada's toughest street courses. Welcome to the 9th round of the 2017 Ultra 94 GT3 Cup Challenge Canada, presented by Yokohama. We're at the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivieres, just off the mighty shores of the St. Lawrence River. I'm Dave Bradley, along with former series champion Kyle Marcelli and Todd Lewis is trackside. Kyle, this track here at Trois-Rivieres is a pretty tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, Dave. This is a 2.46-kilometer street circuit lined with concrete walls. You have to remain focused for the entire 45-minute stretch if you want to come out on top.
It is a pretty racy track. There are 11 turns. Turns 1 and 5 are the key passing areas, so places to keep an eye on here today. And a wonderful crowd, as always, here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. The fans love this style of racing. There's a good look at your pole sitter for today's race. And prior to coming to Trois-Rivieres, Mr. Hargrove has won 6 of 7 races. Yesterday, the field took the green for the 8th race of the season with Hargrove and Robichon lined up in row number 1.
In this single-make championship, that race into turn 1 is extremely crucial. It's very difficult overtaking, and if you can get through turn 1 first, you have a good shot at winning.
You can see how racy these drivers are off the initial start. Once again, the number 9 Pfaff Castrol machine of Hargrove acquired the lead. Robichon and Michael de Quesada fought for second as the race went through the Duplessis gates and around this course for the first time. The Mark Motors number 98 hounded the Pfaff number 9 during the opening laps, though. Then it was a tough break for Sean McKeag, who clipped the turn 10 wall in the number 34. He's been running very well so far in 2017. Good battle here between Patrick Dussault and Remo Ricchetti, who challenged for the 4th place, driving hard into turn number 5. Tim Sanderson's downtown Porsche sneaking in that fight, picking up a spot as well.
That was a great move by Remo. You have to be aggressive around this place, and he looked like he made a clean pass. The contact with Dussault was a bit unnecessary, and it spoiled a good move.
Roman DeAngelis, you saw him in the Mark Motors number 78, dominating the gold class, a teenager from Bell River, Ontario, as that championship locked up. In platinum, though, it was once again Scott Hargrove from Tawasin, BC, in a familiar spot, picking up his 7th win on the season.
Consistency is what wins championships, and that Pfaff Castrol team has been flawless all year.
That's what we saw yesterday. Here today in race number 9, the motors have come to life here on the front straightaway in Trois-Rivieres. And here the drivers starting to put some heat into these engines as they all fire. There's a good look at the youngster Roman DeAngelis. What a season he's having here in his rookie year in the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge. We'll ride on board with Martin RV and the McDonald's backed entry as you see the grid here on the front straightaway preparing to roll off on their formation lap here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres.
Yeah, that's right, Dave. These guys are going to have just 1 lap to generate heat in these Yokohama tires, and with the way the Porsche Cup car works, it's much easier to generate heat in the rears than it is in the front, so they're really going to have to work the steering wheel on this warm-up lap.
Let's take a look at the starting lineup. We know Scott Hargrove in the number 9 Pfaff Castrol Porsche will lead him off. Robichon on the outside of him. Michael de Quesada and Marco Cerrone make up row number 2. Then we take a look back to row number 3. Got Remo Ricchetti in the 69, Patrick Dussault in the 77. Row number 4 has Tim Sanderson driving the 07, and there is the youngster Roman DeAngelis in the 78. Sean McKeag in the 34, Peter Balget in the 15. Great qualifying effort for him in the top 10. A welcome back to Perry Bortolotti in the 84, and Martin RV drives the 08. Row number 7 has Jim Walker in the 71, Ori Fidani back behind the wheel of the 13, and rounding out the field, Neil Walker, driver the 83. So, Kyle, you see the drivers heading around the circuit now. They're waving back and forth, getting some heat in those tires, as you mentioned. But how important is it to build up brake heat as well when you go into turn 1 for the first time?
Yeah, brake heat's important, but the tire is still going to be that factor that that you need to get temperature into. You know, the street circuit here, we need to also consider that it's not a permanent road course, and the track is probably very dirty, especially offline, so they need to be cautious of that as well on the warm-up lap.
And on this start, we know how good Hargrove is on the 9. Keep an eye on that 98. The Mark Motors entry of Zachary Robichaux. A start is very important. Steve White, a guest of WeatherTech Canada, standing by with a green flag in hand. We're riding on board Scott Hargrove. The green's out. We're underway here at Trois-Rivieres.
Yeah, this start is super important to Zachary Robichaux. He told me earlier that he needs to be more aggressive. He's been on top of his team, and they've tweaked the setup. He's going to be all over Scott Hargrove here, itching to get by on this first lap.
There's a big wiggle into turn number 1 for Michael De Quesada, but he hangs on to 3rd spot. Remo Rochetti falls back into 4th. Through that very tough turn number 3 through the Duplessis gates for the first time. So tight there.
I caught up with some of the drivers earlier, and they're telling me it's almost 4 laps. You can see a big lockup right now from Michael De Quesada. What I was saying earlier, almost 4 laps before they generate proper tire temperature, especially in the front. So we saw here on this first lap, as the tires are cold, you have to be very sensitive with the brake pedal.
Problems for the 34 of Sean McKeag. He was off the pace in the Furpal Pfaff-backed entry. He's in 10th spot, but he was dropping back on the straightaway. Now trailing Peter Balger in the 15.
It looks like maybe he's just being a little bit conservative right now, especially as the tires come up to temperature.
Case of once bitten, twice shy here at Trois-Rivieres. As soon as you touch the concrete, you're like, I don't really feel like doing that again. Yeah,
we saw another small lockup there from Scott Hargrove. These guys are pushing so hard. Another lockup from Robichaux. You see the low grip surface as well.
Now here through turn number 3 in the Duplessis gates. Robichaux well within striking distance. The top 2 have opened up a gap now on Michael De Quesada and the Allegra back, number 31.
Now you saw Robichaux just stick his nose a little bit to the inside. He's just trying to get in the mirrors of Hargrove, trying to say, hey, I'm here, look at me, a bit of a distraction, hopefully force Hargrove into a mistake.
This has been a familiar scene all season long. As a matter of fact, Zachary Robichaux in that Mark Motors number 98, the only driver this season to beat Scott Hargrove.
Yeah, as I caught up with Robichaux earlier, he was just saying, you know, he knows he has the pace to run with Hargrove here. He just needs to increase his level of aggression just a little bit more. Scott's extracting and just a bit more from the car and taking a few extra risks, and Robichaux needs to do the same.
Look at the battle for 3rd spot now as Remo Rochetti has closed the gap onto the back of the number 31 Oakville Porsche of Michael De Quesada. Remo Rochetti, who sat out the last 2 races coming into Trois-Rivieres after being involved in a big shunt at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, that Watkins Glen wreck took out, I think, 4 cars from this series, and in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, was nice pass, very clean, well executed. Respect given on both parties. That's what you want to see here on a street circuit and in the Porsche Cup Canada.
And that's turn number 5, one of the key passing areas here on this street circuit in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. We'll see if we can set sail and try and catch the top 2 now. It's Rochetti appears to be the quicker car between him and Michael De Quesada.
Now, we're still very early into this 45-minute sprint race, but these Yokohama tires, they're quite consistent over the long run. It doesn't seem like they really fall off a cliff or anything like that. What I have found after speaking with a few drivers is that they're really heat sensitive, and they cannot, if you get the tires too hot, especially the rear, it's difficult to cool them. So we want to be careful of that, and we'll look to see what happens throughout the race.
What about at this event in particular? You talked about tires, and there's different compounds being laid down here as we've got the number 98 of Robichaux looking for the lead up around the outside of Scott Hargrove. Hargrove saw that coming and went defensive.
That was a great attempt by Zachary, and again, very clean on both parties. You know, if I'm Robichaux right now, I don't want to show all my cards right away. I want to find out where I might be stronger and force Hargrove into a mistake in that area and take advantage of it. Otherwise, Hargrove's just going to get defensive, and I can't get by.
mentioned about a driver trying to get the leader thinking, trying to get in his head. Does it help to pull up alongside knowing you may not have a chance to stick the pass, but at least you're there and you start getting in his brain?
And it does help, and that's a good point, but as I mentioned, you don't want to do it too much because then he knows you're stronger there. He'll just go defensive. So you want to know where you're strong, but not necessarily give it away.
The field coming through single file.
Very, very technical section of the track, as we can see here.
On board, Tim Sanderson riding in 8th spot in the downtown Porsche Harry Rosen backed entry. All the way down the back straightaway as he works his way into turn number 5. We'll take a quick break here in the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivieres. The 9th round of the 2017 Ultra 94 GT3 Cup Challenge Canada, presented by Yokohama from Trois-Rivieres, is brought to you by Porsche. And once again, it is Scott Hargrove out in front. Zachary Robichaux is dogging him at every turn. Remo Ricchetti sitting in 3rd spot in the number 69 open road backed entry. Well, you can see those tail wings bouncing up and down. It's a pretty rough place.
Yeah, it certainly is. In any street circuit, it's a rough circuit. This one in particular is a little more technical than, let's say, Toronto Indy, but of course very bumpy. You know, as we see in the back there, Ricchetti's starting to close the gap to these leaders. As they're battling and Hargrove's having to run offline to be defensive, you see Ricchetti starting to close the gap.
Good look from the overhead shot down the Gilles Villeneuve straightaway on the front chute here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres. You see the top 5 are relatively close together. Marco Cironi and the number 88 just behind Michael De Casada. Here he comes into frame. Roman DeAngelis in there too, and so is Patrick Dussault in the number 77, the Porsche Rib Sud backed entry.
You got to be impressed with the drive by Roman DeAngelis. Let's not forget he's in the previous generation car, a 2014 model, and from my understanding, they're about a second to a second and a half different in lap time, and so we have to be impressed. He's really putting up a fight with some of the newer cars.
As a matter of fact, that was the car that Zachary Robichaux drove last year in the Platinum Cup Series, so you know it's a racy car. Robichaux won a couple times last season, and Roman DeAngelis has very much picked up where he left off. As a matter of fact, not only does he lead the Gold Cup class here in Canada, he's 1 point out of first in the U.S. standings down south as well, despite missing 2 events at the Circuit of the Americas. What a good battle there. Patrick Dussault is hounding the Gold Cup entry. You see Tim Sanderson right there as well in the 07. There's your top 2. And we got problems into the wall. It's one of the Tillman Walker Racing entries. I believe it is Jim Walker in the 71. He's hard in the tire wall. No full course caution yet. We stay green at this point. The time continues to tick down. Now the caution flag waves as the IMSA crew takes a look at the track and notices that the 71 will not be moving on its own. The double flags from the flag stand indicating a full course caution. Kyle, if you're Zachary Robichaux, what are you thinking now?
I'm thinking I got a second chance to take the lead here. You know, this is everything that you want when you're not the leader, but it's not what you want when you are the leader.
So you can see the driver moving inside the car, so it appears as though Jim Walker is alert and okay inside that car. It's just obviously heavy damage to the Tillman Walker Racing entry as the field will line up behind the pace car and try to maintain the warmth in the tires and the brakes. Let's have another look at what happened.
As we look at the replay, it just looked like Jim Walker came in with too much speed and completely missed the apex, ran wide, and wasn't able to save it.
That's in turn number 7. He hit that exit curb hard enough and almost lifted the front tires off, and at that point you're pretty much a passenger, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a big hit, and I'm glad to see he's okay. It really goes to show the safety standard in these GT3 Cup cars.
Damage to that Porsche Center North Toronto entry. We'll be back in Trois-Rivieres. Some good news to pass along. Jim Walker has been released from the medical unit here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres, but his fine 911 will need a little bit of TLC from the mechanics from North Toronto Porsche. So the cleanup continues as we remain under a full course caution, but Kyle, we touched on this briefly. This is an opportunity for Zachary Robichon. Does he learn from that initial start for restart number 1 here?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a big opportunity for him and really everyone on the grid to take advantage and gain position. You know, as a leader, you want to try not to lose position, and it's going to be Hargrove. Let's see what he can do here. Get a good start. Make a gap into turn 1. Turn 1 is a passing opportunity for a lot of these cars, so we'll see what happens.
Pace car pulls in. The drivers preparing for the restart. Don't count out the open road. Number 69 of Remo Ruscetti, who's tucked up behind the 98 Mark Motors entry of Zachary Robichon. The RPMs pick up. The green flag waves once again. We're back underway.
It looked like Robichon was sleeping there a little bit. Hargrove got away from him. Ruscetti is in position to attack, though.
You see a couple of the Mark Motors entries start to fan out in turn number 1. It looked like Roman DeAngelis got in a little hot and closed in on the back bumper of Marco Cironi. No damage done, though.
We're seeing Di Quesada get a bit racy as well. Let's see if he has anything for Ruscetti.
It is really kind of awesome as a driver when you head down the back straightaway and you can see the car in front of you, knowing you have a chance at making a pass. How much does that give you a little extra boost of adrenaline?
Yeah, of course, when you're looking at the bumper of the guy in front of you, you just want to get by. It's that rabbit that you have to chase. You know, at the same time, you're watching your mirrors for the guy behind you. Everybody is in race mode right now.
Onboard Tim Sanderson, the downtown Porsche 07, sitting in 8th spot, right behind Patrick Dussault, who is hounding the 78 of the youngster Roman DeAngelis, lighting up that Yokohama right front tire.
Yeah, we've seen a small lockup. I think there might have been a little bit of contact as well into turn 1. Nothing to upset the car, but he's certainly telling the 78 that he's there.
Patrick Dussault has had several really strong runs so far in his rookie year in 2017 after coming over from NASCAR, jumping behind the wheel of this Porsche GT3 Cup car. A very big difference, but he's never looked at a place. Here we go. Robichon is right there.
Yeah, Robichon's still got the pressure on. He just, you know, he just doesn't want to get content behind Hargrove. He needs to find a bit more aggression and let's get up the inside, make a move. We need to force Hargrove into an uncomfortable position. I can see Hargrove, he's just a little bit to the inside, right, being a little bit defensive. He looks comfortable, he's not making mistakes. The car doesn't look out of control, so he's conserving that Yokohama tire.
Well, you talked about Robichon needing to be a little bit more aggressive. That was his own critique of himself in the last street circuit we raced at in Toronto. Of course, Scott Hargrove swept that entire weekend. Robichon said, I need to be better, and there he went for it, turn number 2. But these two are once again the class of the field. The Pfaff Castro Porsche, the number 9 of Scott Hargrove, from small to Wasson, BC, being chased by Ottawa, Ontario's number 98 of Zachary Robichon.
Let's not forget, you're also seeing a bit of maturity and experience pay off here, right? This is a new generation car this year, and it is different. The chassis is the same, but the frame, the tubing is a little bit heavier. There's a little more weight up high, and so it's changed the handling characteristics a little bit. And we're seeing the guys up front adapt a little bit faster.
This Platinum Cup class car, a 4-liter, 6-cylinder engine, of course, a rear engine car, as is every 911, 485 horsepower, and the driver's putting every one of those horsepower to use here today. Seventh spot is Tim Sanderson in the 07, chasing Patrick Dussault, and you see the leader in the Gold Cup class, the 78 of Roman DeAngelis, just ahead of these two. Marco Cironi not that much farther ahead, too, the 88, who will lead the Masters category here today. Just the drivers who are a little bit advanced in age. That's the Masters class, but Cironi sitting in 5th spot. He's having a great run here today, leading the Masters class, but very much in the thick of that battle. Saw it earlier, Scott Hargrove taking a little bit of a defensive line. He continues to do so. His mirrors filled with the 98 of Zachary Robichon.
Yeah, Robichon's definitely not letting Hargrove get away, and we see there's that second battle between Ricchetti and De Quesada not too far behind, and a third battle here for fifth spot.
Well, that's what's so great about a single mark series is no driver has real advantage over the driver in front or behind. It's really up to the driver to make the mistakes to cost you a position or to gain a position.
Yeah, when you're racing a car in your category, you've got the same equipment. You know, there might be small setup differences from one team to the next, but it comes down to the driver. It comes down to not making mistakes, hitting your marks, running consistent laps, and especially on a street circuit like this, we see the 77 off.
That's Patrick Dussault in the Lozo Autosport, number 77 for Montreal, off in turn number 5. You saw a little puff of smoke just as we were changing the camera angle, and it's a big puff of smoke.
Yeah, that's a big, big lockup. You see a lot of front bias in the car. You know, when I look at that, he's just too far to the inside. It looked like he had the speed to make the pass, but there was no need to go, you know, 2 car widths to the inside. He should have been right on the door of the 78. Might have had a chance of making the corner.
And now, when you flat spot the tires like that, no pit stops here in this race, a 45-minute timed race, you have to live with those flat spots in the front.
And that's a big deal for those who don't understand. A flat spot, it's going to be very difficult to brake and not continue to lock up. Every time the tire rotates and hits that flat spot, it wants to lock up. So you have to be very, very cautious for the balance of the race.
Michael De Quesada in the 31, little jump in through turn number 5, and you see he has a little bit of nose damage, obviously making contact with somebody earlier on in this event. Not slowing him down, sits in 4th, chasing the open road 69 of Vancouver, British Columbia's Remo Ricchetti.
Just a moment ago, we saw Ricchetti using every inch of the road. I think his mirror might have scraped the wall there. He's really pushing hard to catch the leaders.
As a driver, I'm always astonished at how drivers are able to go within inches of these concrete walls lap after lap after lap. Do you really concentrate on it, or does it just become second nature?
Well, vision is a big part of it, and you look where you want to go, and if you see you're going towards the wall, just look away from it, and you might get off free.
Robichon chases Hargrove down the back straightaway, looking into turn number 5. That is a passing opportunity. He's a little bit too far back this time.
You can see the car's really getting upset through some of these corners. Very bumpy, aggressive apexes.
It appears as though the 98 is better than the 9 in the latter half of the track. From turn 5 on through turn number 10, that is where the Mark Motors entry really shines compared to the Faf Castrol entry of Scott Hargrove. But unfortunately, just not a lot of good passing opportunities there.
You're 100% correct, and we're seeing that. He's strong in the second half of the lap, but just cannot overtake. All you can do is try to force your competitor into a mistake.
There you see Tim Sanderson has taken up the challenge of Roman DeAngelis after the 77 of Patrick Dussault ran into some trouble a little bit earlier. Sanderson sitting in 7th spot. DeAngelis holding down 6th, and a great run for a Gold Cup car here in Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres. Oh, Sanderson off of turn number 3, grabbed a handful of wheel.
Big snap oversteer moment. It looked like the bump just really upset the car. Nice save by Tim Sanderson.
Is bumpy fun, Kyle, as a driver?
It can be fun for a few laps, but it gets exhausting.
Forever fighting the car. Remo Ricchetti having a pretty good fight here with a 31 of Michael De Quesada in the Porsche Center Oakville Allegra Motorsports number 31.
Earlier I touched on tire temperature and how affected these Yokohamas are to heat. Again, it's quite a consistent tire, but if you overwork it and overheat the tire, it's really difficult to get the performance back. We saw Ricchetti get by De Quesada and start to gap, but now we're seeing De Quesada close that gap up again. Maybe Ricchetti has just overworked his rear tire.
Great look Look at the focus on the eyes of your race leader, Scott Hargrove. As he jumps on the gas, he took a quick peek in the rearview mirror. He knows the 98 of Zachary Robichaux is there. We'll be back. Hello and welcome back to the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivieres. I'm Dave Bradley along with Kyle Marcelli and Todd Lewis's trackside. High above the 48th running of this famous race, and the number 9 of Scott Hargrove continues out in front. He's led every single lap so far.
We can see that experience paying off again. This is Hargrove's 4th season in the Porsche Cup Canada, let's not forget. And he just looks calm, cool, and collected right now, not making any mistakes. Robichaux's putting the pressure on, but unable to force Hargrove into a mistake or off his line.
For both of those drivers, though, here on a street circuit, it's tight, it's tough all the way around. How important is it to try and preserve some of your equipment for now, the later portion of this race? 16, just under 17 minutes left.
Yeah, we saw earlier with the visor open on Hargrove, and you know, these drivers are dealing with heat. You know, these cars, they don't have AC. They get very hot inside, upwards of 130, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's not just the driver getting hot, it's the equipment, you know, brakes, tires. So over a 45-minute race, they're going to need to manage, you know, themselves and their equipment.
And you see the window up on Roman DeAngelis as well. He's got his visor up too, trying to get a little extra air into his face, but you can't really roll down the windows and get the air into your car because you want that for aerodynamics. DeAngelis chasing his teammate, the 88 of Marco Cironi, who leads in the Masters class. And you'll notice on the ticker on the top of your screen, Michael De Quesada sitting in 3rd spot. Here's Remo Ruscetti having some trouble in turn 7.
You know, as we touched on earlier, maybe he's just overworked his tires trying to get away from De Quesada and catch the leaders, and ultimately 1 or 2 lockups, that's the end. It's tough getting that front tire back once you lock it up.
Ruscetti was looking for a good run here at Trois-Rivieres. He was very quick in practice, second quickest to Scott Hargrove in Friday practice sessions. Hargrove, though, continues to lead with Zachary Robichaux in his shadow every step of the way here today. Turn number 3, Robichaux going to try and get a run here into turn number 5 at the end of this straightaway. Is going to be a good passing spot. Does he have enough? Do you rely on the toe here with these cars? Is there enough of a draft?
There's some, but it would be so minor on a street circuit like this. You know, the brake zones are really the only passing opportunities. You're not going to be able to draft by a car like you would on a high-speed circuit, like maybe like Mosport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. This place is all about brakes.
Saw a little bit of smoke coming from the number 9 of Scott Hargrove, so he is feeling the pressure. But you talked about a place like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park and a street circuit like this one. Tell us the difference in car setup. What are you doing differently?
Of course, in a place like this at Trois-Rivieres, it's very technical. The car is going to be softer, more compliant. It's a more point-and-shoot driving style, so good on the brakes, get the car rotated, good acceleration. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, on the other hand, very fast circuit. You want to have a little bit more stiffness in the car for lateral G-force.
Of course, the next race you'll see here on TSN will come from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as we will crown a champion in the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. It will be the finale, and Hargrove is going to have a fight on his hands as we've got just over 13 minutes remaining here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec, and Zachary Robichaux is coming.
It's not a cakewalk for either of these two competitors right now. They're both dealing with different circumstances. Obviously, Hargrove, it's a tough race mentally. He's watching his mirrors the whole time. He's focused on not only trying to pull away, but also keeping the car behind. Robichaux, on the other hand, he's trying to put the pressure on. He's working really hard and working the equipment hard as well. He doesn't have clean air to cool the brakes, cool the tire. He's got Hargrove right in front of him.
And to turn number 1, both drivers hard on the brakes. Hargrove makes it through cleanly, as does Robichaux. Now turn number 2. Smooth on the throttle and on a transition to the brakes. Hard into turn number 5. Over that big cahoot at the apex of turn number 5. And again, chasing the 9 is Zachary Robichaux.
It's a great onboard shot, and the track looks even narrower from this angle.
Now, well within striking distance, Robichaux will take a look on the inside of the number 9. Coming through turn number 9, headed for turn number 10.
Robichaux's definitely stronger on the second half of that lap, and he just, needs to show his nose, try to get Hargrove to look in his mirror so that maybe he runs offline.
Boy, Scott Hargrove is going to fall asleep tonight and dream of that beautiful prepared Mark Motors entry. You've got problems, and it's the 0-8 of Martin Harvey in turn number 3. It looks like he came to a rest before he caught the tire wall. No caution. We'll grab a gear and get going. The Porsche Prestige backed entry, no damage to the nose of that race car, which is a good news, and Martin Harvey will battle some more. Have another look at what happened here on board.
It appears to be a bit of the same old, just a front lockup. He wasn't able to get the car turned. It might have helped if he came off the brake. In that situation as a driver, you don't think about coming off the brake and letting the car roll, but in hindsight, that might have got him through the corner.
You sort of panic, don't you, as a driver? You think, I got to get this thing stopped before I hit the wall.
100% right.
You see the gap from the top 2 back to Martin Harvey. Harvey's in 12th position. There is your third-place driver, Michael De Quesada, and Remo Ricchetti, after having that issue in turn number 7, the big lockup there and nearly off into the tire wall, has really gathered himself back up. That's a good move for the rookie out of Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, Ramos, he's coming up to speed. He's still learning this Porsche. It's a very unique driving style that suits the Porsche, being rear engine. These cars like a lot of trail braking to help get the car to turn in at the corners. And his experience, he's done a little bit of prototype racing, a little bit of more showroom stock type racing in the IMSA Continental Championship, and he's done a great job there. But we're still seeing him come up to speed and learn the characteristics of a Cup car.
And he looked like he was going to try and use the 0-8 of Martin Harvey to set up a pass. Harvey, the veteran of the GT3 Cup Series here in Canada, pulls to the inside and lets those two go by. A little puff of smoke there from Remo Ricchetti in the open road. Back to entry, still chasing the Porsche Center Oakville 31. A battle for third spot. The top 2 well out in front. There is your race leader, Scott Hargrove. And second place, Zachary Robichaux. Covered by a blanket, as they have been every single lap of the way here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. Hargrove leads. We'll be back here on TSN. This is the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada, presented by Yokohama from the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres. We ride on board Marco Cironi. Good look at the Mark Motors entry. Both of them. You've got Cironi in the 88, leader in the Masters class, and then the 78 Gold Cup entry of Roman DeAngelis. We mentioned this quickly off the top of the show. DeAngelis essentially has the Gold Cup wrapped up in his first year. He's had that dominant a season.
Yeah, if I'm either of those two competitors right now, I'm not in a race for position. This is not an in-class, in-category race. Your teammate is ultimately your biggest competitor, as we see in all genres of motorsport. And DeAngelis is doing a great job holding his own in older equipment, learning from the more experienced veteran of Cironi.
Well, it was Cerrone who actually got Roman DeAngelis a test ride in the Mark Motors entry, so he let him drive it. Roman DeAngelis turned some heads, and they signed him to a contract just 1 week shy of his 16th birthday, and he has not disappointed anybody in that Mark Motors camp. He's done very well this season, a flawless 2017. On board Tim Sanderson, who can watch that battle just ahead of him as the youngster DeAngelis chases the veteran of Marco Cerrone. And interesting to note, too, DeAngelis has had a little extra racing on his schedule so far this weekend, racing in the Formula 1600 category, where he placed second, so a solid outing for him this weekend. Is that tough to jump back and forth between those two style cars? Because they're pretty different.
Yeah, apples and oranges. And we see DeAngelis here looking to make a move again.
That's a tight place.
This move is for 6th place overall in the race.
And as a driver, I mean, you may not be racing in the same points championships, but you see a car in front of you, you're racing for the overall race win. You want to pass him.
You do, and you also need to take into consideration that your teammates, you're going to leave a little margin on the table.
You see Martin RV in the Porsche Prestige 08 just ahead of this battle. Of course, RV is a lap down, and he'll take a look in his mirrors. He moved aside for the leaders a little bit earlier. We'll see if he does the same here for Marco Cerrone. Battle for 5th spot is Cerrone and DeAngelis, and he got very loose.
Yeah, we've seen Cerrone just get a little bit aggressive on the throttle. Those tires are late in the race. We saw a bit of wheel spin and a snap oversteer as he tries to get by the lap car.
Just over 5 minutes remaining here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. And this is a dice for 5th, as we mentioned. Marco Cerrone, Roman DeAngelis, and just in behind, you see that Harry Rosen downtown Porsche entry, the 07. That's Tim Sanderson. He is in this battle for position as well. Sean McKeag in the 34, 8th spot up for grabs. He's battling there with Perry Bortolotti out of Ottawa. Big welcome back to Bortolotti, a champion in the Platinum class back in 2011. That was the inaugural season for the Platinum Cup cars in Canada. Last raced in the series in 2014.
Yeah, two guys that have been around a long time, good friends off the track, and we see, you know, a lot of respect on the track as well.
Good-looking entry for Bortolotti, that chrome Mark Motors entry, the 84, and have a look on board with Sean McKeag.
So it was a very clean pass up the inside, but got a bit wide on the exit. We saw Bortolotti looking to make a comeback, but wasn't able to do it.
Almost a switch-over move there, but luckily for Sean McKeag, he was headed to the turn number 2 and shut that down pretty quickly. There is your top 2, and a huge gap back to 3rd place. Michael De Casana continues to hold down 3rd place. Your race leader is still Scott Hargrove, and now he's starting to open up a little bit of breathing room. Look at how red his face is getting.
As I touched on earlier, that car behind, Robichon would have been working his car and his tires a bit more than Hargrove, being that he was in the dirty air. And maybe that's what we're starting to see now, is his car's just fallen off a little bit. He doesn't quite have the edge that he had earlier on in the race.
Would he be able to sit back for a little bit, take a couple minutes and try and regroup, cool some things off, and then mount that challenge again?
He might be able to cool the tire and get a bit of performance back, but the reality is, you know, these guys are dealing with tenths of a second on each lap, and you won't be able to close, you know, a 1.5 second gap in the last 3 minutes if you cool your tires.
Well, he'll try his best. We'll take one final break, and we'll bring you to the finish here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres. Scott Hargrove continues to lead Zachary Robichon in a dogfight on the streets of Trois-Rivieres, Quebec, here on TSN. Just over 2 minutes to go here at Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres. That means that Zach Robichon has about 2 laps to catch Scott Hargrove, who has led all 37 so far. He's 1.2 seconds back. That last lap, he's closed it to under a second. Robichon is trying to move up.
We can see Hargrove up ahead. Looks like he might be coming into a bit of traffic.
As Peter Balget in the 15 moves to the outside, leaders manage to work their way through. At this point, that's exactly what Robichon needs. He needs somebody to get in the way or something to happen.
Hargrove's driven a mistake-free race, and I can't see him throwing it away at this point.
It's not something that Scott Hargrove has done here in 2017. He's had many events where he has failed to put a foot wrong. But anything can happen in the final throes of this race on the streets of Trois-Rivieres. With the walls so tight, it doesn't take much.
I think we've seen it before in Formula One with Senna on the last lap at Monaco throwing it away. It's very easy, you know, your mind to think about that checkered flag on the white flag lap and just lose focus for a split second.
So Robichon starting to push it harder now with a white flag being shown. Robichon went a little bit wide in turn number 7 as he tries to gain momentum. Problems for the 34. Sean McKeag in front of the leader. Oh boy, that was close. Here's what happened to McKeag on corner exit.
Yeah, that's odd to see at corner exit. By that point, you're picking up throttle, and he might have just had a bit of wheel spin. We'll see it here. Yeah, he's on throttle. Yep, just picked up throttle too aggressively, spun the wheels, and it got away from him.
And, of course, he was in a battle for 8th spot with Perry Bortolani, who went by as Sean McKeag was sitting crossways on the track. The good news, no caution. We stay under green. Sean McKeag has the FAF Furpal entry back underway. And Scott Hargrove managed to avoid him in turn number 1, but a hairy situation there. So Robichon can see the number 9 as they work through the final turns here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. He disappears as Hargrove carves his way through turn 9 and 10, looking for the checkered flag. Give the win again to Scott Hargrove here in Trois-Rivieres, Quebec. He's going to give the crowd a wave on his cool-down lap, and what a run for Zachary Robichon. Pressured him every step of the way. Coming through this battle for 5th spot, there's Marco Cerrone, Roman DeAngelis, and the 07 of Tim Sanderson. They're not done yet.
Yeah, you can see that battle between the 78 and 88 has allowed Sanderson to close the gap. He's getting racy on this final lap.
Roman DeAngelis looking for the gold class win. He'll follow Marco Cerrone off of turn number 10. He'll win in the gold class. Cerrone will pick up the Masters class win. But what a race those two had as well. So really, wherever you are in the Porsche GT3 Cup Series here in Canada, you're going to have a race in your hands.
That's absolutely right, Dave. We saw battles all throughout the grid today, even between 2 teammates in the closing laps of the race.
Well, they'll have a great chat about it in the paddock area after the events in Victory Lane, and that's where we will be. When we return, we'll talk to Scott Hargrove, the overall winner today. The 48th running of the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivieres Porsche GT3 Cup Canada race dominated by 22-year-old Scott Hargrove. This is the Tawasin, BC native's 22nd Porsche GT3 Cup victory over the past 3 seasons. Believe that stat. Steve Bortolotti and crew have once again given him a perfect machine for this rough and tumble street course here in Trois-Rivieres, and you can see him get out and celebrate.
Yeah, leading looks easiest, but he had tremendous pressure today from Robichon. We could see his experience in this series paying off.
He hit all the marks and did everything he needed to do. every step of the way. He started on pole, and he finished in the top spot for the second race in a row. Let's head down to victory lane. Todd is standing by, preparing to speak with your race winner. Todd?
Yeah, he did, right?
Yeah, I think he did. Smile is the same. Once again from Scott Hargrove, another satisfying victory, another weekend sweep. Doesn't get old at all, does it?
No, especially when you have to work like that for it. You know, we always start off the weekend so strong. I mean, whether it's here, Watkins Glen, Toronto, but these guys keep the pressure on, and by the second race, it always seems to be a little bit closer. So I really had to work for that one today. So hats off to Zach. He kept me under pressure the whole time. But Faf Castro Motorsports car was just awesome again. I mean, you know, we're making small changes here and there. There's, you know, slight improvements, but overall, I mean, a phenomenal weekend, and I think flawless from the team's part. So I'm ecstatic.
Another satisfying weekend victory for Scott Hargrove.
You can see it all over his face, a huge smile for Scott Hargrove as he wins here today. But solid runs put in all the way through the top 10. Michael De Quesada coming home with a top 3 podium finish.
And it was a good return for Perry Bortolotti in the 84. He and Sean McKay got a good fight. Sean looked to have 8th place wrapped up until the closing laps of the race. Had a bit of a spin in turn 1.
Zach, I know it's a second place result again, but you pushed him as hard as you could throughout this entire race.
Yeah, you know, it was a stark contrast to yesterday's race. Yesterday, I could only stay there for about 5-10 minutes. And then last night, you know, I sat the crew down. I said, listen, I don't want to do that again. I didn't like that. So I made them work hard. I feel bad. I got to thank the Mark Motors crew. They were here late. We basically changed the entire car, and I think it benefited us. You know, we were able to hold the pressure the entire way. Couldn't quite get him to make a mistake. You know, it's a street track. You can't stuff it, as we say, into some of those braking zones, because it's just not worth the risk. So it's unfortunate how we had that pace. I think just about anywhere else we probably would have gotten by him. But hey, that's racing. It's a fantastic track. The crowd here at Trois-Rivieres have been unbelievable. So I'm happy with it. And at the end there, I kind of cooked the rear tires. I was pushing a little bit too hard, so I had to back off the last 4 or 5 laps. But you know, overall, 10/10 the whole race, and it was a lot of fun. I have to hat tip to Scott. He didn't make a mistake, wouldn't break. So, you know, we'll do it again at Mosport, and hopefully we can reverse this.
Builds the confidence every single time for Zachary Robichon. As we take a look at the championship standings, this one's not over.
No, it's not. You know, Zach is shown to have the speed. If he can find a bit more aggression, I think for him, 1 or 2 wins to wrap off the season would be a great championship for him.
Of course, that final race will be from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. You heard Zachary mention the crowd here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivieres is always strong. These Quebec fans love their motorsports. And the streets of Trois-Rivieres, a gracious host to the Porsche GT3 Canada Series. The number 9 of Scott Hargrove led the field to green and never looked back. Michael De Quesada pushed hard in the opening laps to challenge Zachary Robichon. The number 98 Mark Motors machine hounded Hargrove corner after corner, lap after lap. Jim Walker tested the limits of his 911. The North Toronto Porsche driver would walk away from a hard impact in turn 7. The teenager Roman DeAngelis wins in the gold class. Marco Cerrone triumphs in the Masters division. And once again, Scott Hargrove takes the Platinum Cup honors.
Let's not forget about Michael De Quesada. He's showing maturity and confidence race after race, building speed. Great podium result for him today.
Soon he will be there to challenge those top 2 competitors here in this series. This Porsche GT3 Canada Cup broadcast on TSN is brought to you by Porsche. Don't forget, the finale event for 2017 will take place at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. From all of us on the TSN crew, we'll see you there.